Hello, everyone. Thank you to the organizers of NASFiC, Hafida and our entire team for the invitation. My name is Vikram Paralkar, and I'm the author of Night Theater, which came out with Catapult this year, and I will be reading from this novel. So just to give you an overall sense of what the novel is about, Night Theater is set in a clinic in rural India, where a surgeon who's working under really deprived conditions is visited one night by the dead, who ask him to stitch up their wounds so they can return to life at dawn. A little bit about me as an author. I was born and raised in India. I came to the United States after medical school, and I am on faculty at the University of Pennsylvania, where I where I treat patients with leukemia and I do research into the genetics of leukemia. And this book actually, and on most of my writings, blend medical themes with magic realism and speculative fiction or fantasy. So I'm going to be reading from chapter 2 and a couple of excerpts from some chapters up ahead. And I thought I would just start by setting a scene about the setting of the book. So the book begins in a tiny little unnamed village in India. There is a 4-room clinic that is situated on a hillock. The clinic has only 2 people working in it. One is a surgeon who, because of a scandal in his past life, is condemned to working in this clinic, and a young woman from the village who acts as his pharmacist without really having any medical training. In the first chapter, you get a glimpse of just how difficult life is in this clinic. There is a polio vaccination drive that is supposed to occur. The government official is supposed to deliver vaccines, but he doesn't show up until late in the afternoon. The surgeon reams him out, and the official tries to get the surgeon to bribe him. And so it's just just to give you a sense of how difficult the circumstances are in which the surgeon is trying to function with corruption and unable to provide really the medical care that he would like to provide. And then as the day goes on, he decides that he's going to finally leave this clinic, and he just doesn't want to work here anymore. He despises the place, he despises the people he works with, and in fact, he even has begun to despise the villagers, his own patients. And so in a way, he's at the end of his rope. And this is where chapter 2 begins, with some unexpected visitors showing up at his doorstep. Chapter 2. The surgeon, his head buried in the ledger, was adding a long string of numbers when someone said, "Dr. Sahib." The nib of his pen halted, and he watched an inky halo blossom around it and spread through the cheap paper. The calculations in his mind evaporated. He looked up. There were visitors in his doorway. He hadn't heard them step into the clinic. "The polio drive is over," he said. "The vaccine's all finished. Nothing left." With his pen, the surgeon pointed at the boy, an oval-faced child with untidy hair sticking out behind his ears. "How old is your son?" "8," replied the man. "Then he doesn't need this vaccine. It's only for children 5 years and younger." "We aren't here for the vaccine, Dr. Sahib," said the man. Fingerprints smudged the surgeon's bifocals, and he had to pick them off his nose and wipe them clean to take a better look. He couldn't remember having seen these people before. The man was slim, his face oval like his son's, but stubbled. The woman standing behind the boy was perhaps a little younger than the man, probably the wife. Her scarf was wrapped strangely around her neck and chin. "What is it then?" the surgeon asked, returning to his ledger. First the encounter with the official, then his confinement in this room, monotonously forcing drops into bawling children. It had ground him down to his marrow. And he was almost done with his work, 15 minutes without interruption. That was all he needed. What the hell was the pharmacist doing anyway? Last he knew, she was in the storeroom, folding cardboard boxes to line the medicine cabinets. Instead of doing her origami, that girl should have stopped these 3 at the front steps. "It's late," she should have said. "The clinic is closed. Come back tomorrow." But she was nowhere in sight. The surgeon would have to deal with these people himself. Are you deaf? What do you want? He said. The visitors flinched. We need your help, the man said. This will seem like a strange request. Strange request? What nonsense is this? Just state your business or get going. Now, finally, the pharmacist rushed in, panicked. What are you doing here? You can't disturb Sahib like this. Wait outside, wait outside. She began to usher them out. But when the boy moved aside, the surgeon noticed the bulge under the woman's loose clothing. He raised his hand. Is your wife in labor? Did her water break? No, said the man. She's almost as term as you can see, but that's not why we're here. At least, not just that. The man paused, rubbed his mouth with the back of his palm. His eyelids parted further, and he stammered out his next words. We are seriously injured, all three of us, and we need surgeries tonight. The visitor clearly wasn't a bumpkin. He was educated, his choice of words left no doubt about that. But surgeries? Had the surgeon heard him right? What could the man possibly... Show me, said the surgeon. Like merchants displaying their wares, the boy rolled up his vest, and the man unbuttoned his shirt and lifted his right arm over his head. In the man's side was a slit, its edges white and still, like lips paused in speech. It was enough to fool one into thinking that the ribs had been penetrated. The boy's abdomen was bloated. Two cuts in the upper left, under the rib cage, formed a cross whose corners curled outwards. And then the woman finished peeling away the many loops of the scarf wrapped around her neck. It couldn't be. He had to be mistaken. The wound in her neck? Surely it was a trick of the light. Could those be the ends of her muscles? And was that? No, it was impossible. The larynx? But there was no blood gushing out, not even from that neck. What kind of hoax was this? Who were these charlatans? Out of the corner of his eye, the surgeon saw a jerking motion. It was the pharmacist. The surgeon had forgotten that she was still in the room. She looked rigid, as though in the grip of a seizure. The man with the cut in his side sprang to her and grabbed both her wrists with one hand. Stepping behind her, he clapped his other hand over her mouth. She was thin but seemed to match him in strength as they struggled. He grimaced as he twisted her forearms and muscled her to him, her back against his chest, her torso immobilized by the pressure of his arm folded across her, locking her twitching hands against her shoulder. The air seemed to clot, grow viscous. The surgeon pushed through it, tried to reach the pharmacist. He felt his books fly off the desk as his hand struck them. The woman with the monstrous neck blocked his path, clasped his wrist, pressed a finger to her lips. Please, Dr. Sahib, please. The man said, I won't hurt her. I won't hurt you. We are good people. We just need your help. What? The surgeon began, but could find no suitable words to add. So he just stood and watched the man signal the boy, watched the boy run to the window, close and latch it, bolt the door, watched the woman go to the pharmacist and reach out to cup her cheek, all the while speaking rapidly, calling her sister, begging her not to scream. This was no hoax. The pharmacist, twisting in a captor's grip, arched her body back like a bow at the woman's advance, making the man stumble a step back to maintain his hold on her. The girl's eyelids had opened as far as they could go, and her eyes were fixed on the woman's obscene neck. The surgeon felt his own muscles knot and pull at the point where the nerves threaded out from his skull. He pressed his hand on the cold glass plate of the desk behind him. The man with the cut in his ribs opened his mouth, but if he said something, the surgeon could not hear it. The woman fell quiet, and probably realizing the effect her injuries were having, raised the scarf and let it drape back around her neck, removing her wound from view. The surgeon's eyes darted around the room. Could he use his pen as a weapon? Was it sharp enough? Solid enough? It lay on the floor, its nib snapped off. A spray of ink stretched across the tiles. What else? He had scissors in his drawer somewhere, he was sure, but he'd have to dig for them. He gripped the table's edge tighter, leaned against it. What is this? What's going on? The visitors stood like effigies. The woman and the boy turned to the man, who was opening and closing his mouth like a fish thrown to land. The girl he held captive had stopped the struggle and now just hung against him, breathing heavily with her eyes squeezed shut. The man, too, closed his eyes and heaved, as though gathering his breath for some feat. "I'm a teacher, Dr. Sahib," he said. "This is my family. We have never harmed anyone. We just want to live our lives in peace." So that's the end of chapter 2. For those of you who are just joining this reading, chapter 2 basically shows how the surgeon and his pharmacist, who are at the end of a mundane but annoying day in the clinic, are visited one night by a family of 3 individuals who are dead, of a husband and a wife and their 8-year-old son. And in the upcoming chapters, they beg him to stitch up their wounds so that when blood starts flowing through their bodies at dawn, they can return to life. And the rest of the book is the surgeon's attempts, surgical attempts, to heal these very strange visitors and try to restore them to life. So I'm going to read an excerpt from chapter 5, since we have a little bit more time, where you get a glimpse of exactly what the surgeon's clinic and operating room is like, and how absent the resources in them are. Chapter 5. The lights in the operating room flickered on. The faintest trace of formaldehyde still hung in the air. Glazed tiles with bluish veins covered the walls to a height of 4 feet. Many were chipped and broken. Despite the pharmacist's regular scrubbing, grime had settled into the grout, and the paint on the wall above, once a shiny white, was now blistered with green geographies of mold. A loop of sturdy metal hung from the plastered ceiling. The large tungsten reflector lamp that had intended to hang from it had never been delivered, vanishing, like so many things, into the bureaucratic ether. The room was lit instead by a fluorescent tube mounted high on one of the walls, and by 2 tall angle-poised lamps that the surgeon himself had purchased. Together, they cast a modest illumination, suitable for minor procedures such as the suturing of shallow cuts or the extraction of glass shards, but certainly not for any real surgery. Only a lunatic would suggest doing anything here in the middle of the night. These last few years, the surgeon had wondered if he had the right to operate at all anymore. With a well-lit surgical field, he might still have trusted his skills. But in this room, where lamps cast shadows, concealing more than they exposed, every nerve or blood vessel or loop of bowel could hide in a dark corner and conspire to brush against his scalpel's edge. It was impossible to operate safely here. Inflamed appendices, gallbladders, bowel obstructions, he sent them all to the city hospitals. What did he have to offer anyway? No nurse, no blood bank, no light? If a patient had to die, she would die from a disease, not from his surgery. A glass cabinet on the wall housed his instruments, relics of his past. It was the pharmacist's job to keep them sterilized and bundled in thick green cloth. Their shine was rarely marred by use. The surgeon would just unwrap the green wombs and sort through his collection, arrange his tools by size and type, hold them up to the light one by one as though approving them for surgery, until he could no longer ignore the absurdity of this farce. "These need to be autoclaved," he would say, and drop them back on the tray. "Yes, Sahib." The instruments were sterilized far more often than they were used, but the pharmacist never complained. She would just wrap them back in the squares of cloth, pack them into fenestrated metal boxes, set them in the autoclave drum, and wait while the machine steamed and whistled. Then she would extract the contents with sterile gloves and stack them back in the glass cabinet until the surgeon felt the need to inspect them again. Because of this pointless routine, all the instruments in the cabinet were always ready for surgery. And they were ready now. Still, it was just a humble set of implements, basic tools for mundane surgeries, nothing very specialized. The dead seemed to think the surgeon a magician with mystical devices and superhuman powers. How many disappointments was he destined to inflict on them? And what agonies? The surgeon had worried about this since the beginning. Would they feel pain? He had no equipment for anesthesia, no propofol, no thiopental. And even if he did, how could the drugs work on the dead without a bloodstream? He might have to crack their chests open without the basic luxury of lowering them into slumber. Did they understand that? To these concerns, the dead man said, "Our wounds don't hurt. We don't even feel them. It's part of our state. We won't feel any pain for the rest of this night." "And what about tomorrow morning when your blood starts flowing?" asked the surgeon. "We'll have life and blood at dawn, Sahib. So I assume we'll also have pain. When that happens, we will endure it. We will endure whatever we have to endure." Thank you. I hope that reading gave you enough of a taste of the ideas in the book and its writing. Once again, this is Night Theatre, and my name is Vikram Paralkar. I will post a link to the book on Discord if you would like to check it out. But thank you so much for listening, and hope you enjoy the rest of NASFiC. Oh, I should say, apparently, because we have about 3 more minutes, if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask them. I can see 2 questions over here. Hafida is asking me, the tone reminds me of Jose Saramago's All the Names. Question for Vikram. What does he like to read that falls in this category? I cannot tell you how amazed I am that someone else has mentioned All the Names by Jose Saramago, because it is absolutely one of my favorite works of his. So for anyone who doesn't know who Saramago is a late, unfortunately, but great Portuguese author, whose every single book I have read. And in fact, I posted a photograph on my Twitter account of the Saramago shelf on my bookcase. And All the Names is definitely one of my favorite books. And actually, if Fida felt that the tone was very similar, then I don't doubt at all that Saramago's writing and his style of writing has seeped into my own. One other question that was posted: is this based on any specific right to healthcare issue in India or anywhere else? You know, in India, unfortunately, healthcare really is only something that is available to the wealthy. Um, if you can pay for it, then you can pay the hospital to treat you. If you don't have the money to pay for it, then you can go to one of several poorly staffed and poorly stocked government clinics. And this novel is actually based on one such government clinic that is based on an experience actually that I had during my medical schooling, where as a final year student in India, I had something called a rural health posting, where I was posted in a clinic similar to this one. And the day when I showed up, the senior doctor who was supposed to be supervising me went on vacation, leaving me as a final year medical student in the clinic. And nothing terrible happened during my stay over there, but it definitely gave me a sense of what it could be like to be placed in a situation where you are completely unequipped to provide care to anyone who might come for you. And I try to smuggle that into this writing, where you have a very experienced surgeon, but he is faced by the dead and is trying to heal them, a challenge that he has never faced. So with that, I think that brings me to the end of my 20 minutes, but it's been such a pleasure. And Hafida is saying that she celebrates his birthday every November, the Saramago's birthday every November, which is just fantastic to hear. So thank you so much to all of you. Have a good time.